Buddy, and thank you for joining with me for the Say Yes to Education budget hearing. Councilor Hogan, Schultz, and Mayock. We're going to need one more package. Oh, there you go. Okay. Did you give one to Councilor Schultz?
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Are you ready?
Thank you. Yep.
Go right ahead. You got the floor.
Okay. So what you have before you is our spending for the 2021-2022 academic year for college last year. You'll see on the third page a report card. I was hoping to have this ready for you all by today, but it's still in production. So I provided what our spending is just from the data tables in our system. So on the first page you have there, you'll see in the corner the total aggregates of spending for that particular year. It's important to keep in mind that this is the first year that students return to in-person learning on campuses. In the last year, in the 2020-2021 school year, they were in virtual classrooms, and we saw our spending and our enrollment go down. So I'll just reference the report card again there. If you look there, on the top section, you'll see next to where the piggy bank is with the graduation cap, there's a total, and our total at that particular time was $885,000. That is lower than what we typically spend in an academic year. It's usually over $100 or over $1 million, usually like 1.1 or 1.2. So that went down. Now, if you reference back to the first page, you'll see our grand total for that particular year is over $900,000. So it ticked back up, and it follows national trends all over the country. It ticked back up, but our enrollment didn't bounce back to pre-pandemic levels. Preliminary numbers for 2022-2023, I would say it's still trending up, so that will be 2 points going in a positive direction. But that said, you'll see that it went down. We do have we have one scholarship and 2 grants. You'll see for our choice grant, that is a grant that goes to students attending private colleges, and if their income is above $75K, their family income, they get a choice grant for $5,000. That is $148,000. That is still slightly lower than the previous year. And then this is pretty interesting. For our opportunity grant, this grant is designated specifically for students that are attending SUNY schools. And they qualify for this grant. They don't have to sign up for it. They qualify for the grant if their tuition is covered through a combination of federal Pell Grants and New York State TAP grants. It's important to note here, just in the past couple of days, I had questions about Excelsior. We do not consider Excelsior in our calculation. Also, the way the law is written for Excelsior is that all other aid has to be counted towards tuition before Excelsior can be applied. So essentially, students that are receiving the Say Yes tuition guarantee will not get the Excelsior grant because we're a last dollar tuition guarantee scholarship. So the opportunity grant went up. If you look at the report card, you'll see the opportunity grant was $170,000, a little over that. In this particular year, the opportunity grant was $220,000. So that's actually a significant increase for the opportunity grant. There's a couple of inferences we can make from that. One is that more students that fall in students of need were enrolled. Another we can say is that in the COVID year, Because we didn't have as much contact with students in the schools, not as many students completed our application, right? So in that particular year, we saw a significant decrease in the number of students that even signed up for Say Yes. Whereas in this year, we saw a significant increase for students that signed up for Say Yes, partly because they were in classrooms. The high school counselors have more touch with them, more touch points, and we were able to interface with them beyond virtual kinds of things.
Just to understand, if I understood correctly,
Yep.
you said that the 8 types, the Pell, the TAP, and all of those, they apply for those first, and then given the number, the financial support they get from those, then you balance the...
Yep.
Okay.
So, if a student is at, I don't know, let's say OCC or Buff State or Oswego or Cortland, and we all know tuition at SUNY schools is relatively cheap to private schools. If they get a maximum Pell Grant Award and a maximum TAP Grant Award, that's going to more than cover tuition. So tuition last year was $7,070 for an academic year. The maximum Pell Grant Award is $6,935. The maximum TAP Grant Award covers tuition. So their potential award is over $15,000. The caveat to that is that the cost of attendance at those colleges is usually about $24,000, $25,000, $26,000. So even though that student is in need and the tuition is covered, if they want to live on campus, they're going to have to come up with about $12,000 or $13,000.
Do we help with that?
We do. So we have an opportunity grant. So that's what the opportunity grant is. It's $3,000 that they can use towards books and fees. And something I'm happy.
There's a cap. I'm sorry. There's a cap to that.
There's a cap. Yeah, it's $3,000. Yeah. But there's something else that I'm sure you all will really like. Starting fall of 2023, we are launching a partnership with Onondaga Community College in which they will match our opportunity grant.
Oh, that's great.
So students that have enough TAP and Pell to cover tuition and are wishing to live on campus, and we know research shows that students that live on campus perform better than those that live in the home. Maximally, they'll have a balance if they want to live on campus of $725. Minimally, they could have it all covered. So they can go to OCC and they can live on campus tuition free and really cost of attendance free.
Okay.
I just want to say that I'm an EOP graduate from a million years ago when the dinosaurs were on the earth.
EOP, yes.
EOP, I would not probably be here today, so.
Me too.
Yes, and we work closely with the EOP office at OCC and at Oswego. But this preferred partnership, we are going to take this on the road. Genesee Community College has already reached out to us, and they want to set up the same type of arrangement. And so it's a really, those colleges that are really stepping up to make colleges affordable and equitable as possible. We're happy about that.
So I also know that Onondaga Community College has a partnership with HBCU.
Yes.
And is Say Yes student part of that?
We're working on it. We're working on it. So we've had conversations with Lincoln University, which is in Pennsylvania, Norfolk State, which is in Virginia, and University of Maryland Eastern Shore. We're trying to, the way our model works, across the country, and it's not just HBCUs, it would be what I consider to be tier 2 schools are strapped for cash. So we're trying to work out a model that it works for them and is also equitable for students. What we talked about is our choice grant that I mentioned here, which is $5,000, doing like a matching grant with those HBCUs. So if we give students that choice grant, if they're able to match it, that's at least $10,000. We could say, if you're going to this HBCU, you can use this towards the cost of attendance. But that's not solid in place. So I am on record saying we're working on it, but I am not on record saying it's a done deal.
Yeah, right.
So the tuition award, not the one that covered the other one, the one on top. It just says tuition award.
The tuition award. Okay, yes. So thank you. We're back The tuition award is for those students that had a balance on tuition at SUNY schools. So the profile of those students, the financial profile of those students, is that their family income is too high to qualify for a federal Pell Grant, and it's too high to qualify for a TAP grant. Either it's too high to qualify for those, or they get a little bit, but not enough to cover the tuition, where we cover the balance, and that's actually our biggest spending.
And did you say earlier that the threshold there is $175,000 per family? How much is what's the limit?
So for SUNY schools, there is no limit, right?
Oh, okay.
So here we go. Here's a caveat for students that get the tuition guarantee because the family income is too high. We have gotten this question in the past, and I know it's probably coming now, so hopefully I'm answering it before it comes. The question is, well, so is this a high income or middle income scholarship, right? Because they're getting the tuition because their family income is too high. And the answer to that is no, and this is the reason why. For students who have a family income low enough to get federal Pell and New York State TAP and still have a balance on tuition, when we give them the opportunity grant or anything else, that brings their balance smaller, right? They still have to come out their pocket, but it's more affordable. For students who whose income is too high, they get the tuition and then they're on their own for everything else. So when you look at the balance that they have to pay to go to that school, it is significantly higher than those that have a high need. So, you know, that's where our largest spending is, but that doesn't mean that our model is not equitable.
So is there a cap of how much you can get for just tuition?
At the SUNY schools, there are many families, many students that get the full tuition. So it's $7,070, and there is no cap as it is right now. You know, we may have to look at that differently if the cost of college continues to go up. During COVID, New York State kept it static at $7,070, but I know they are poised to raise tuition by $300 in the next year or two.
Okay.
All right. So are we ready for the next page?
Yes.
Okay. So on the next page in the top corner there's two tables here. What we're going to pay attention to is what you see in the corner. That's our total spending, what we're able to leverage. And the total there is $13,947,000. And if you look at the report card, you'll see what we're able to leverage under the piggy bank. Last year it was $15 million. This year it's a little lower. What we can inference there is that there weren't as many students that went to private schools as there were in the COVID year. And let's see. If you flip this page over, where the total is, and you go to Syracuse University. Syracuse University, you'll see in the in the middle column, $6,935,000, right? Our partnership at Syracuse University is unique to all of the other colleges in that there is no income cap. So all of the students that go to Syracuse University get the tuition guarantee supported by Syracuse University endowments. They are our champion institution, they are our largest contributor, and they also help us to get other colleges to sign on to our compact. So that's just something that is very notable, is that Syracuse University is just under $7 million last year in supporting SAYS students that are on their campus.
And that's just for classes, it's not boarding?
No, it's just for tuition, it's not boarding. What I will say is this, is that it is not in our agreement, but they have done it for every single student. They also cover tuition and fees. So it's tuition guarantee and books and fees and stuff like that. So if a student does decide to live on campus, they don't have to worry about books or student fees or lab fees or whatever the case. They just worry about room and board.
Okay.
But you know, that said, it is not cheap to live on SU's campus.
No.
It's not.
So back to your point where you're saying that students typically do better when they don't live at home and go to school, but Syracuse is a great school, so
So it's a great school. I mean, the value you get on the dollar. I mean, Syracuse University's tuition is over $54,000, so you're getting that guaranteed. You probably have to live at home if you don't want to pay for anything, but the value you get on that is over $200,000
What's your number?
over 4 years. Oh, I don't.
Estimate, yeah.
So generally, in every institution, generally, if you pay your tuition fees and that doesn't cover, if you have classes that require lab, you need to pay fees.
Yeah. So at SUNY schools, yes, it's just a tuition guarantee. It doesn't cover books and fees and other things like that.
So how many city high school kids take advantage of the Syracuse University?
Currently they have over 150. I think it's like 161.
In all 4 years, obviously.
Yeah. That is 161 includes all students and all undergrad. So freshman, sophomore, junior, senior. This past year, we had 540 students complete our application and enroll. 300, you'll see there.
Do you have a breakdown of high schools at all?
Do we? I'm sorry.
Breakdown of what high schools?
I do. I didn't bring it,
Love
but
to see that.
Okay. I'm sorry. Yes, I'll give a breakdown of the high schools.
Only the interest. I was on the council the first when we put this together.
Yep.
Like a bipartisan. In fact, it was really it was the first in the nation, and SU was so significant in garnering everybody else to sort of come aboard. So. This is impressive as the amount of colleges are on board.
Yes, and we're COVID was just such a thing for higher ed.
Right.
And we're seeing a bounce back. Something I will say though is that in the past, when you look at this report card and you look at the matriculation rates, we were reporting on just Say Yes students. A board member at the Community Foundation challenged us to look at the broader, to look at the whole entire student body. And so when I do send you all the updated report card, the matriculation rates will be from National Student Clearinghouse, and it will be inclusive of all students, not just Say Yes students. So, they felt like, and I tend to agree, they felt like it gives a better picture of the total impact.
Well, Syracuse University has been even though sometimes people look at me as a critic of them, they, after World War II, they were, Bill Talley, who was the chancellor, actually wrote the GI Bill along with a few other chancellors, and they were very welcoming to returning veterans of working class families that probably never would have went to Syracuse University or any university if that hadn't happened.
Yeah.
It's sort of continuing on in that.
The Veterans Center is awesome.
Yeah.
I went there. It's a spectacular first-class place, and from what I understand, it's like one of the leading centers in the nation for veterans that want to continue their education.
When you were talking about the historically black schools,
Yep.
I know Howard is on this. Their tuition's got to be really incredibly high.
It is. So it's interesting you mentioned Howard. My daughter's actually going there right now, and it's not cheap.
So you got another job, probably. Probably got 2 jobs.
I'm pulling some late night hours, but for HBCUs that we're trying to reach, it's just a matter of finding the right person.
Yeah.
So
I read an article where they're under a lot of stress as far as particularly in getting males to go to school in some of those schools, and there's some great schools there too.
Like I said, when I send you all the updated report card, there's significantly more females than males that are enrolling in college. It's a stressor. What I will say for HBCUs, there is a report, there's actually 2 reports that say enrollment actually increased for their institutions. And we reached out to them through a combination of things. There are like 2 or 3 HBCU tours that happen. One with the Syracuse City School District, one with Junior Frontiers in On Point. And when they come back, the students are like all excited about HBCUs, and they're asking us about our partnerships, and we only have 4. So we know that there's an interest there. And then President Hilton at Onondaga Community College was able to make a connection with us. to some folks. So we're really happy.
guy.
Yeah. He's a good guy. He's a really good guy. He's a Sixers fan. I'm a Knicks fan. We won, and so we're in the second round. But he's a good guy.
Gotta make that shout out.
I got
Go to him and tell him you won.
Not yet, because we
Gotta
just
go.
won, but this is the first time the Knicks won a playoff series in 20
City of
years.
Syracuse giving a shout out to the next year too, just
Okay,
letting you know.
gotcha.
So this is the list of all the universities you're working with.
Yes. Yep. And so that is the total. If you want to know about any specific school, there's a breakdown there on what we yield on our policy. So we count the yield on our policy because for students to receive a Say Yes award, they have to complete the FAFSA application and they have to complete the TAP application. So we count all of those things because we're a last dollar scholarship, and that's what we're able to leverage.
Do you offer help or support to students and parents trying to complete these very complicated forms?
Yes. So we work with On Point for College, and we work with New York State Financial Aid Administrators Association. They do college completion nights at all the schools every year. The caveat to that is that we do find that there are many students and families who are really intimidated by that. So what happens is you go into the library, there's a bunch of people everywhere, there's financial aid advisors that are volunteering, and they kind of come and help you out. And what we found that is there's a lot of families, that's just a very intimidating environment, and they probably need a little more touch. So we're working with On Point for College to do something by appointment. I mean, I have some expertise in completing FAFSA, but sometimes it gets really complicated. So On Point for College, they're trained, right? They get trained to help people.
Remember those days?
Yes.
Paper-based back then, at least for me.
Yeah, you have to.
Oh,
How
at
many
least it's
children? It's
electronic.
coming back.
It's coming back.
So I did, but I want to make note of something. I saw you looking at the graduation rates. We record those because the connection that the scholarships have is to the wraparound supports in the schools. So ideally, the whole premise on this is that it would be an economic driver for high school graduation and college completion. And in theory, the idea was that if we're able to wrap students in supports from K to 12, we'll see higher graduation rates. Of course, we know that there are multiple efforts that go into increasing graduation rates, but that was the idea, and we'd like to think that being that catalyst to the wraparound supports is having some sort of effect. So we record that there too.
So I have a question. Maybe kind of know it, but I don't.
Okay.
With females going to college more than males,
Yep.
what are some of the efforts that are being made to maybe explore possibility of supporting males to at least,
Keep up.
Yeah.
keep up?
Yeah.
You know?
Something that I could share with you all afterwards, and if you'd like, I could send it to you all, is the Community Foundation is launching their strategic plan later this June. Each of the departments there has a plan, and scholarships has a plan, and of course AS is included in that. And what we would like to do is a number of years ago, we endeavored to launch a network that we were calling the Syracuse College Attainment Network. There's a number of nonprofits. There's a very ripe ecosystem of nonprofits that work with students to transition to college. There's On Point for College, there's us, there's Hillside Works Scholarship, Mercy Works, Lemoyne Upward Bound. I mean, there's just a plethora of programs and nonprofits. What we would like to do is do something collaboratively in a formal way. So, we all know each other, right? We do what we can for students, but we don't have like a formal partnership or formal something that we're all working towards. Our hope is that when we gather these people, by putting it in our strategic plan and being intentional about it, when we gather these people together, that we're going to be able to say, all right, we're all going to focus on one thing. And the other thing that we want to do with that is, you know, you really have to be plugged in to know what all the resources are, right? And what we want to do to level that playing field is develop some sort of way to house all the college access information in one place, so that any and everyone from the community can get access to it. And it's not because, oh, such and such told me, or whatever the case. So to answer your question about the males, an idea, this is just an idea, is that right now there's like 3 or 4 different infrastructures on students to get matched up with a professional as a mentor, right? On Point for College has it, Mercy Works has it, I believe Hillside Works Scholarship has something like that too.
100 black men for the
And 100 black men. Something that we would like to endeavor in is modifying our policy in some sort of way. So our eligibility criteria is simple. Resident of the city of Syracuse, enrolled in the Syracuse City School District 3 years. If there is enough room, if there's enough capacity in the infrastructure, we would like to put some sort of rigidity in there, in the criteria. And, you know, in a dream world, hopefully if it works, maybe we'll do a pilot. Something that we will put, the rigidity we will put in there is that in order to get a scholarship, you have to sign up to get a career mentor.
Can you put the 10 counselors on that list as the first 10 mentors? That
Yeah, absolutely.
volunteer their time?
Absolutely. I mean, you know, if you talk about scale, that means that every student that gets a scholarship, we know met at least once with a professional that is going to talk to them about what they need to do to transition from college to career. And hopefully that will be a retention piece too, so that we don't get students going elsewhere for jobs.
That's in On Point's formula, isn't it? To some
Yeah, they have a whole On Point for jobs, and that's part of what they do.
But you want to put it in this?
Yep, the Mercy Works has their internships every year where they pair people up. So there's infrastructure there, and hopefully the will is there to say, if you want the scholarship, you have to meet with a mentor.
Isn't CNY Works also?
Yes, they do. Yep. The infrastructure is there.
Yeah. So I'm asking that because when you look at, you know, it's a much bigger question, you know, because some of this spill over to other areas, you know, as we look at gun violence and the community violence, you know, if they are not going to college, you know, what are the chances of them,
Yeah.
you know, bearing off, you know? So it may, you know, I'm not saying that that's the only solution, or I mean an indicator of as to why, but you know, it's, you know, when you see males,
It is telling.
you know,
It's telling.
what do they always say? An idle mind is the devil worship. Yeah, you know, that. You know,
Yep.
so
You look right at me. Counselor.
So that was my first question, and I guess the other question is, when you look at the 38% compared to 62% of private versus public schools attendance.
Just so you all know, he's referring to the report card.
Report card is based on, and I don't know if you have done any survey to figure out why more people are going to public versus private, but it's, I would assume tuition.
Exactly.
Tuition
The cost of
has something
education.
to do with it. And also, maybe is diversity part of the driving factor as to why they're going to public institution as opposed to private? What are they?
Yeah. So what we plan to do, and it's also part of our strategic plan, is to survey students every year. We're not going to make it mandatory because we know how surveys go, but we are going to reach out to students by email and ask them to complete a survey. I can say anecdotally that SUNY schools are just cheaper. I mean, even
Also, though, to your point.
yeah, very diverse. I mean, even Lemoyne College, which is one of our anchor colleges, the tuition is $32,000, and you know that's it's just more expensive to go to a private school.
So, Ahmed, last time that we had this meeting last year,
Yep.
we talked a little bit about trade schools and other types of education. You were looking into that. I remember you said something of the sort. Have you made any steps forward?
We are, there's a couple of things. There are students that are enrolled in P-TECH. When they're enrolled in P-TECH, they graduate with their diploma, and they also get a degree from OCC. That is all paid for through New York State. And what we said was that once they complete their associate's degree, they're still going to be eligible for SAYS if they want to continue their education onto a bachelor's degree. The other thing is there are technical kinds of certificates that students can earn at OCC. And lastly, we are talking to our council. We just had our scholarship council meeting last week, and we discussed the possibility of including an institution like BOCES. So they are a higher ed institution. What the council wanted to see is an impact analysis in our endowment, so we're going to have to guesstimate how that would impact spending. But I would imagine if we're trying to stretch the endowment as much as we can. And I would imagine if there's some room there, we would be able to support.
I was just thinking that maybe some of that shortage of males going to the university, maybe they're choosing to go to trade school, and if we can see a relation on that,
Or
that'd
at
be
least
great.
have that be an option if they decide not to pursue traditional schools, you know?
Does SAYS have to be anchored to a campus, physically anchored? Because I'm thinking, like, along what we've been talking about, I know a lot of the families and the kids I represent, they've taken the advantage of going to Empire State College, too.
Yeah.
Which is basically for people that work and want to get a college degree, you know, and it's a
Yeah.
state university, you get a degree from a state university, and I'm just wondering if there's any help for those.
Currently we're a program of the Community Foundation, so we're not, when SAYS first came, you might remember we were anchored by Syracuse University. That everything ran through them. But that said, I think that's something we can modify or look at.
I've known more than a few kids, including my own, went 2 years to OCC and then got his degree from Empire State College because he was working by that time.
Empire State is SUNY, right?
Yeah.
Yes, it is.
And it's like basically you meet with a mentor,
Yep.
and they plot a curriculum for you, but you do most of it online, and you call in, but you talk to professors and all that.
It's all online, that's why you lose it.
I think that's something we could. I think that's something we could look at. I can't really. There's no efforts right now, but I think that's something we could look at.
But is there an age consideration to be had with Empire? Like you said, some people are out there working and they go back because they can do it all online. So where does this
No, I mean we have
Gotta be
Not for you,
72 and
sorry.
under.
Sorry, I wasn't pointing.
72.
You brought up Empire, sorry.
there is. I mean, the way the policy is right now to remain eligible, there's a gap year. So
Okay.
if you graduate, for anybody that's graduating this year, if they decide they don't want to go to college right now, they can enroll in 2024 and remain eligible. But then beyond that, they lose eligibility.
I mean, you just don't show up in class. I mean, you're not just physically in a class. You get a degree, but you have to do it by yourself, basically. So,
You got to do the work.
or you don't get it. So,
Okay.
So just in terms of the funding, so funding source, so grants, the fundraisers that you do, where else do you?
Oh yeah. So our endowment, we completed we reached our goal for the endowment in 2016 when then Governor Cuomo launched the Upstate Revitalization Initiative, our Region 1, and in that proposal, a slice was allocated towards the Say Yes to Education endowment housed at the Community Foundation. Now that $20 million it's called Syracuse Promise, but it's within the Say Yes to Education Fund. And so there's two different kinds of, I guess, regulations. There's what we raised privately through private funds is $10 million. With the SRC matching grant, we were able to raise $5 million, and then they matched $5 million for 10. And then there's a slice that we got from the Upstate Revitalization Initiative, which is $20 million. So our goal for the endowment was actually $28 million, but we were able to complete it at 30. The yield, the community foundation invests the endowment, it yields maybe 3 or 4% a year. So right now it's currently at over $36 million.
Nice.
So we don't do any more fundraisers. But that said, we don't know what the college environment is. It's really dynamic. COVID kind of put a pause on things, but many colleges, including the SUNY system, run colleges like a business. And in a business model, you're always trying to increase profit. So, it will be there for generations, but will there be a time where we need to look at it again and raise more? I think probably, but not in the near future. Is that it?
Yeah. Is it just you still, or do you have more staff?
There's me and one other person.
Yeah, finally.
Yes.
You got help.
Yes, thank goodness, yes. There's me and there's an officer. Her name is Dana Lyons-Canty.
Good. Good to know.
Maybe you've said this before, but what's the cutoff to enroll into Say Yes?
You mean like there? So
assume some kid is moving from Virginia to here.
Right.
What's the cutoff?
Yeah. So minimally you have to be a resident of the city of Syracuse. And we've had a number of students who, through special circumstance or whatever the case, they move out of the city of Syracuse, even though they finish at a Syracuse City School District school. That's just a steadfast, you have to be a resident of the city of Syracuse. And then you have to be enrolled in a district or in a charter school for at least 3 years. So if someone from Virginia comes, or New Jersey, or whatever the case, and they're here for 11th and 12th grade, they're not eligible. There is a way to appeal. Well, let me back up. For refugee students, there's no number of years that you have to be. You're automatically eligible. For McKinney-Vento students, you're automatically eligible. For foster care students, you're automatically eligible. For students that don't meet that 3-year threshold, there is a way to appeal. So originally, when that policy was written, it was to protect against students in neighboring districts learning about this, moving in their 12th grade year, whatever the case, to get the tuition guarantee. That's what it was written for. It wasn't written to penalize families that make a family decision based on whatever their circumstance to move to Syracuse that had no idea that there's this Say Yes to Education thing. So someone from Virginia that comes, for whatever their circumstances, if they don't meet it, they can appeal. Those appeals get reviewed on a case-by-case basis. And, we're not trying to discourage them. What we are trying to discourage is if you're in this district and you've been there your whole life, that you're not going to come over to the Syracuse City School District your 12th grade year.
So we hear time and time again in our meetings that the city of Syracuse is having a really hard time filling our vacancies in every single department. So
Yeah.
have you had any communication with our HR department about connecting your students? I know you mentioned the mentor program, but.
Yes. So that's the final frontier that we're working on. Ultimately, what this is supposed to lead to is enriching our talent pool. It's hard to track that. So I remember you asked about that last year. It's just hard to track. There's like Labor Bureau statistics, but that data's skewed. There's census data that's skewed on the number of students that graduate and stay here and lend their talents to our community as opposed to those that graduate and move. We haven't been in touch with HR, but we have been in touch with, there's a project that Center State CEO is doing. There's a couple of projects that SU is doing, and there's another entity I can't think of right now. where they share information with us, and then we share these opportunities with our scholars. So a prime example right now is Center State CEO is partnering with like Syracuse University, SUNY Oswego, and a bunch of companies on a paid internship. And like, we're not talking about a small paper, like a professional paid internship. And what they want to do is they reached out to us to communicate that to students so they're able to recruit.
So we need to get our HR department to share that, because I know we've talked about that here, and there are internships at the city that are paid. I don't know how well they pay, but, to try to plant those seeds now so that we can retain our folks.
Yeah. I mean, nationally, over 83% of students that intern somewhere end up being retained there. So it's worth doing, and we're happy to share any opportunities with our students, especially career-wise.
Police and fire both have cadet programs, and they're getting into the schools more too. So I think that's where our sweet spot's going to be to recruit.
Thank you.
Any more questions?
Thank you.
Are we all set? Thank you, Ahmed.
Thank you. All right, so what I'm going to do is I will follow up with you all on the updated report card so you have it, but it will be much of the same information.
And the
Thank you.
mentor program.
Yes.
In the mentor program, yes.
I hope your team does well.